Hi, in today's video, I'll be making an upgrade to my existing Mandalorian kit with this, a new gauntlet that lights up when I flex my wrist. This project required me to use a lot of existing skills I have, but I haven't used in many years, as well as develop many new skills. And it was a lot of fun, and I hope you enjoy. Thanks.
Here's the model I used to make the gauntlet. This is the same model I used to make my original gauntlet. And I drilled out all of the holes individually by hand instead of adding them into the model itself. This is something that can be done by anybody and doesn't require any special software.
Okay, so the circuit I have that will go into the gauntlets itself is pretty simple. So I have these LEDs that already have a resistor soldered in, so I don't need to worry about that. And I have a 9-volt battery, a 9-volt battery connector. Now, my thinking is to get it to activate when I turn my wrist like this is I'll use a magnet switch. These are what they use in Windows to detect when they're open to trigger an alarm. So they just they activate the circuit when another magnet comes into contact or out of contact, depending on the kind you have. So the plan is I'll have some sort of elastic connecting the wrist gauntlet to the hand plate on the glove, and there will be a magnet at some point on there. So this is the circuit I have. So this is the magnetic switch right here. Let me zoom in on it real quick. It looks like this, and it can be activated with any kind of magnet. So this is just basically a test to make sure everything works right. So I have an LED right here, and then when I take this magnet and put it in range, the LED turns on. Okay. So, pretty simple. And then the gauntlet itself will have, I believe, 6 of these wired in parallel. So the next thing I'm going to do is wire up this actual, solder everything together, because it'll all be assembled outside of the gauntlet and then put in. So I'm going to do that next. Cool. Now I just slide the heat shrink over and tighten it. So the first piece is now heat shrinked and soldered together, and I'm going to use the same process to connect all of the LEDs in parallel. Okay, so this is all prepped for the LEDs to go in, everything fits. I still have to do a little tinkering to figure out where the battery's going to go, where the cables are going to be run, but I've got a pretty good general idea. So now I just need to finish this up. This needs to be primed with filler primer since it's PLA plastic and it gets really rough and fuzzy when you sand it. So I'm going to do 2 or 3 coats of filler primer, sand all of those off until all these ridges and everything are gone. As you can see, it's not very smooth right now, and there's layer lines. So I got to take care of all those. Then it will get a gloss black, then clear lacquer, then the chrome will be applied. And this will be painted the same way I paint all my helmets, but I'll walk you through the process of how I would fill and sand something like this. The only real spots that need to be filled are the Z-seam on the back, which is that line running up, and the bottom where the overhangs are need a little bit of filling. But
Okay, so the filler primer made the individual layer lines a little more obvious. So now I just have to hit this with 120 grit sandpaper, knock these back, then I'll do another coat, and then 220 grit. Okay, so now I need to put a little filler where these supports went because it's a little spaghetti like in these spots. So I'm going to use Bondo spot putty. I just have a little bit of it left. And I'm gonna try something new, which is applying it with like a painter's palette knife, I guess this is. So this stuff dries really quick and then paints really easily. So once I put a coat of this down, I'll put another coat of primer, do another round of sanding. And usually for big imperfections like this, it'll take 2 or 3 coats. So I'm gonna do that now. Okay, so a couple days have passed. I've done a bunch of coats of primer on this. Now, before I do all the black clear coating and then the chrome, I want to get all the electronics in it and figured out, because the last thing I want to do is not have a good idea, then scratch up the chrome and mess up the finish. So I want to do it all now while I still have a little bit of error room with the finish. So the plan right now is to super glue all the LEDs in place and then backfill them all with epoxy to hold them in place. This will go somewhere in the middle and the battery will go on the bottom. I've tried it on, it all fits with everything in. It's a little snug, but it should work. Worst case, I just print another one if it doesn't, but that's the plan right now. So I'm gonna super glue everything in and then do the epoxy. So while I was doing this, I accidentally fatigued one of the LEDs and broke it. So I have to snip this guy off and then resolder a new one in, but it should only take a couple minutes. And after all that, we have success. It works again. So just make sure you test everything before you glue it all in place, because then it's permanent. So time to glue this last one in and then figure out how I'm going to route all the wires. Okay, so I want the wires inside to, this is the top, I want them to loop down to the bottom so that there's room on the top free for the switch. So I'm just doing that with duct tape for now. Trying to keep the wires flat so they don't take up much space, and then the battery will go on the inside as well. So I should have cut all these wires shorter, but I didn't know how much space I would have, and I thought it would be harder to snake everything through, so I left them long, and now it's kind of a problem. But if I end up doing this again, or someone watching tries this, you can know from my mistake that I left all the wires way too long. Okay, so I got all the cables installed now. Adjust the light so you can see this. They're all routed on the inside, held down with hot glue. Now this connector hangs a little bit loose, so I can attach the battery, and this will get, end up putting Velcro on the battery and then a little Velcro strip inside is my plan. So everything fits, all the wires are run. Now let's make sure it still works. Hey, and it does. Okay, so I have the sewing machine and I'm going to use it to connect this stretchable elastic to this nylon cord. I don't know what this is called, but it's like what a backpack strap is basically. So this will allow it to stretch, but only from one end. So it's always being pulled, so the magnet can be pulled into place. So
Just pretty simple connection. Just gonna do a couple stitches. That's pretty strong. Now I'm gonna hit it with the lighter. To burn off all the frays. So when I pull from here, it'll stretch. Perfect, that is all I needed. And that little bit should be enough for what I'm trying to do. Okay, so I want this to have a little bit of adjustability. So I'm going to hold the elastic in with a small screw. So that should do it. And this is the little screw I'm going to use right here. And that'll go through the elastic. That way I can shorten the elastic or lengthen the elastic depending on if it gets stretched out or if it rips, I can replace it. Okay, now I have my tiny little screwdriver set and I can screw this in. This might be the wrong. Uh-oh, this pokes right through it. That poked right through the elastic. That's not good. Okay, so I did it again, but I reinforced the elastic with a little bit of the strapping. So let's try that again. And it looks like the hole I drilled is tapping nicely. And I can take a tug. Sweet. So that works. Okay, so I've got a battery connected to the gauntlet. I'm going to now test how. So it looks like the range for it to activate is pretty close. So sweet. Now that I know that, I can figure out where to place the magnet on the elastic strap so that when it gets pulled on, it will activate it, but not without being pulled on. So to do that, I'm going to put the magnet in position so that it's not activated. Okay, so everything's roughly where it should be right now, and just a quick test. And it works. No, I need to hold it so that it doesn't slide out my hand right now, but once I get padding on the inside and it fits more snugly, this hand shouldn't be necessary, but that works. Okay, so the electronics inside are all at a place where I'm happy with them. They work. Now, the last thing I need to do before this is ready to be painted black, then chrome, is I need to put some masking fluid over the individual LEDs so that I can peel it off at the end and they're still shiny, but the paint can get around and fill some of the error areas that were caused from the drilling. So I'm going to apply that all with a Q-tip is my plan, if I can get one small enough, and that should work. So I'm going to do that next. Okay, so now it's painted black and it's been hit with gloss clear coat, so it's real shiny now. There's paint over the LEDs right now, which I'll remove later, but they still work. So the next thing to do is to paint it chrome. For that I will be using All-Clad 2 chrome lacquer. This stuff is great. It's what I use for all my other pieces of the armor. It dries almost instantly when it touches. And the way to apply this for best results is not at full opacity. You want to leave a little bit of the black showing, and that'll give it the dark steel look that's in the show. So I'm going to do that now. And there it is. This is what she looks like. Now to clean out my airbrush and then spray on some all-clad clear coat over top. And it still works. Perfect. So what I'm thinking is, here's my glove for my left hand. The way that this attaches to the glove, there's just two magnets here, and they're the strong neodymium kind, and it holds it pretty well. So let's see if I put this strap in between. Yeah, that's plenty strong. So. And there we go. Oh, it's all flying. I gotta mess with it a little more to get the tracking right, but yeah, so there it is. Sweet. I'm really happy with how this turned out. It was a lot of fun to make and required me to do a lot of problem solving as I went. There's ways I could improve it. I could use a different type of switch that would probably be more consistent since it doesn't always light up. But I'm happy with this. This is better than I expected to get, and it only cost about $4 in parts. So this is something you can do to any gauntlet. I didn't have to modify any of the files. I just drilled a couple holes and added all the electronics, and I recommend it. It was really fun and hope you enjoyed. And if you did like, feel free to check out some of my other videos where I do similar stuff, or my dad's videos where he does cool woodworking projects, as well as he's working on finishing the basement right now. So subscribe and like if you enjoyed. Thanks.